Before he took his last breath, my husband gripped my hand and begged, "Never step foot on the farm. Promise me, Linda." I thought it was just a dying man's fear, until the very day we buried him. His brothers walked into the funeral without a tear, whispering about that farm he swore me away from. That's when I realized my husband didn't just leave me grief, he left me a secret, and the key to it was hidden on that forbidden land. The church smelled of lilies, but all I felt was dread. I sat with my daughter Emily, just 21, her hand trembling in mine. Richard's brothers, Charlie, Stephen, and Mark, slipped in like businessmen, whispering, smirking, their eyes never once touching the casket. When the will was mentioned, Stephen even smiled. Emily leaned close. "Mom, they don't look sad at all." And she was right. The vultures had already begun circling. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. Richard's handwriting stopped my breath. "Linda, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. I know I asked you never to go back to the farm. But if my brothers come, you must. On my desk, you'll find not only my laptop, but the truth I never spoke." The farm, that cursed place he had forbidden me from. Why would he send me back there now? I folded the letter before Emily could see. But that night, his voice haunted my dreams again. "Never go back, unless they force your hand." The very next evening, headlights slashed through the storm. 3 shadows appeared at my door, Charlie pounding like he owned the house, Stephen clutching a briefcase, Mark silent behind them. "Linda," Charlie said coldly, "we need to discuss the farm, tomorrow." Emily's wide eyes searched mine, but I already knew. Richard's secret was calling me back to the place he swore I should never set foot again. If you were me, would you open that farm gate or keep it locked forever? The morning after the Mitchell brothers stormed into my house, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee gone cold. Rain had rinsed the night clean, but the heaviness inside me clung like damp clothes. Emily stood by the curtain, her face pale, eyes darting at the driveway as though she expected shadows to arrive any moment. I wanted to shield her, to rewind life back to when her father's laughter filled this house. But Richard was gone, and with him, the world we once trusted. Before I take you into this storm, remember to subscribe to Twist Stories and turn on the bell. Here, you'll find tales of sacrifice, betrayal, and the twists no one sees coming. And tell me, where are you watching from today? Maybe the next story will echo your life. At noon, the Mitchells barged in without knocking. The door slammed against the wall. Charlie's voice boomed first. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m. at the farm." He tossed papers onto my table like cards in a rigged game. Stephen slid a form forward, every gesture calculated. "Neutral ground. Let's clarify the estate. You're out of your depth, Linda." Mark trailed behind, silent, his gaze stuck to the floorboards as if shame glued him there. Emily, trembling but fierce, stepped between us. "Don't talk to my mother like that." Charlie smirked. "When men handle business, emotions wait in the car." I held my daughter's arm, steadying her fire. "Fine. We'll meet you." When they left, the silence felt heavier than the storm outside. "Why the farm?" Emily whispered. "Dad hated that place." I touched the drawer where Richard's letter lay hidden, because he left us something there, and they know it. The next morning, we drove out an hour from town. Asphalt bled into dirt roads. Wheat fields swayed like a restless sea. The mailbox at the gate leaned crooked, paint peeling like fish scales. From a distance, the farmhouse looked almost quaint, but up close, rot revealed itself. Warped boards, bowed railings, a screen door that sighed with every push of wind. Inside, the air was stale with dust and linseed oil. Richard's father had loved horses more than his own sons. Even now, the house's best light tilted toward the empty paddocks. Then I saw it. On an easel by the window, A half-finished canvas, a woman with silver-threaded hair at a window, a black horse rearing against a storm, Richard's hand, his strokes. He had painted me. Emily touched the edge of the canvas with reverence. He wanted you to see this, Mom. Tears pricked my eyes. Or maybe he wanted to remember me. We moved cautiously, every floorboard groaning like a warning. In the kitchen, I spotted a crooked drawer that never shut properly. Years ago, Richard's father had spat venom at me here. You're useless now, the words still cut. If anyone watching this has heard those words, you're not alone. They try to brand you with worthlessness the moment you stop bending. But it's a lie. Bootsteps shattered my thought. The back door scraped open. The brothers entered like they owned the air. Charlie clapped once, starting the meeting. Good, you came. We said we would, I answered, keeping my voice steady. And we'll leave with what's ours. Which is? Stephen's tone was silk over steel. Whatever Richard intended for his family. Stephen clicked open his briefcase. Richard left ambiguities. We'll fix them. The West acreage is worthless scrub. We have a buyer for the rest if you sign off on mineral rights. Emily gets a modest trust, college, nursing school, reasonable. Emily's eyes flared. Mineral rights? For land you just called worthless? Standard language, Stephen said with a shrug. Don't get excited. I scanned the contract. Legal jargon swarmed like ants. But buried in page 9, an easement, a theft hidden in plain sight. You buried the trap under a non-disclosure, I said. Charlie leaned in, close enough that I could smell stale whiskey on his breath. Linda, you were a caregiver, a mother. Now you're a widow. We're offering you dignity. Take it. I locked my eyes on his. Respect isn't given by blood, it's earned, and you've earned nothing. They led us outside, pretending civility. In the barn, a black mare stamped the ground. She's been left by a renter, Charlie said dismissively. Emily stroked the horse's neck. The mare leaned into her hand like an exhausted friend. You can't even keep a horse fed, Emily snapped. We're not running a sanctuary, Charlie retorted. We're running numbers. That line carved itself into my memory. Running numbers, even over blood. Back inside, Stephen tapped a pen against the line where he wanted my name. Sign, and this gets easier. He thought fear would fold me. But he didn't know the nights I held Richard upright when his lungs seized, or the mornings I counted pills like prayer beads. I placed the pen down. Give us an hour. If I decide to sign, I'll call. Stephen checked his watch. 60 minutes. After that, the offer worsens. When the door shut behind them, the house exhaled like it had been holding its breath. Mom, Emily whispered, voice trembling. They're hiding something. Yes, I said. And your father hid something too, for us. In the study, Richard's desk crouched beneath a dusty window. The top drawer revealed a battered laptop, its charger coiled like a snake. A sticky note in Richard's blocky scrawl. For Linda, and when she's ready, for Emily. My fingers shook as I opened it. The screen demanded a password. Try midnight, Emily urged. Denied. Last promise. Denied. Our anniversary. Her birthday. His old oil field ID. All denied. Outside, a truck door slammed. Boots crunched on gravel. Mom, Emily breathed. They're back. Sweat gathered on my palms. I typed the only word that pulsed in my mind. Accepted. The screen lit up. Folders spilled across the desktop. Among them, one named with tomorrow's date. A spinning icon. A scheduled video. I clicked. Richard's face filled the screen. Eyes steady. Jaw set as though he'd chained himself to the truth. His recorded voice poured into the room. Low, grave, undeniable. Then, the back door swung open. Boots struck the tile. Time's up, Charlie called. My hand hovered, trembling between the spacebar and the volume. Would I pause Richard's confession, or let it play loud enough for the wolves to hear? Charlie's voice thundered down the hall. "Time's up, Linda. We're not waiting forever." The laptop screen glowed in the dim study like a forbidden fire. I lowered the lid halfway, heart hammering, afraid they might hear Richard's voice spilling secrets meant only for us. Emily clutched my arm, eyes wide, silently pleading, "If they hear Dad, everything is lost." I forced myself upright, smoothing my palms against my skirt, as though I could iron out the fear. In the great room, the brothers waited like wolves who'd scented blood. "We needed more time," I said, steady as I could. "You barged in too soon." Charlie's sneer curled. "We gave you an hour." 50 minutes, Stephen corrected, checking his watch with smug precision. Charlie leaned forward, voice dropping to a growl. "You don't need time, Linda. You need to face reality." Before I could answer, Emily stepped forward, chin trembling but proud. "Reality? You've been circling us like vultures since the funeral." Her words cracked the air. For a fleeting second, Mark's eyes shifted away, guilt flickering in the silence. Sometimes silence screams louder than a threat. The oak table groaned under the weight of contracts they spread across it. Papers fanned out like snares disguised as gifts. Stephen tapped one line with a manicured finger. "Mineral rights on the Western Strip," he said. "Meaningless words, worthless land. Sign this and you'll have security. Otherwise you fight us in court. Do you have the stomach for that?" My chest tightened. Memories surged. Richard at dawn, staring through the window. Fists clenched, whispering, "One day they'll learn the cost of greed." I straightened. "Court isn't the threat you think. Sometimes daylight is the best disinfectant." Charlie laughed, harsh as gravel down metal. "You against us? Don't kid yourself." Emily cut in, eyes flashing. "Listen to yourself, Uncle Charlie. You talk like you already own everything." His face darkened. "Respect your elders." Her reply rang out clear. "Respect is earned." For a heartbeat, his bravado cracked, and the rafters seemed to hold their breath. When the brothers stepped outside for a call, I rushed back to the study. My hands fumbled the trackpad. The video loaded. Richard appeared on the screen, lamplight haloing his thinning hair. His voice was steady, sharp. "Linda, if you're watching this, the brothers are circling. The West acreage. They think it's worthless. It isn't. A deposit lies beneath it. They tried to make me sign it away. I refused. That refusal cost me peace. I leave you the records, maps, contracts, survey footage, in the safe downstairs. The code is the year Emily was born." Emily gasped, hand over her mouth. He knew all along." "Yes," I whispered, my throat tightening. "He always knew." Richard leaned closer to the eye, camera, his tone softening. "And Linda, one more truth. If they come for Emily, tell her she was never powerless. She carries my legacy in her blood, not just my name. She deserves to fight with it." Tears blurred my vision. Even in dying, he'd thought only of us. "Mom," Emily said, clutching my hand, voice firm despite the tears. "The safe. We have to find it." The basement smelled of damp earth and iron. Shadows pressed close as we pushed past paint cans and rusted tack until we found it. A steel door bolted into the concrete wall. Emily keyed in her birth year. A heavy click echoed like a drumbeat. Inside lay stacks of files, maps streaked with red ink, reels labeled with years. At the center, a binder marked in Richard's sharp hand, "War Room." We spread the papers across the workbench. Evidence leapt from the pages, bribes, fraudulent deeds, accounts hidden overseas, and then an envelope sealed with Richard's name, scrawled across it. "To Linda and Emily, if they force your hand, use this. It is the truth they fear most." Emily's fingers trembled over the seal. "Not yet," I said quickly. "I A weapon drawn too soon is no weapon at all. That night, we sat cross-legged on the floor, the documents fanned around us like tarot cards. Candlelight flickered, painting Emily's face half in shadow, half in fire. Her voice wavered at first, but then it steadied. They wanted me to think I was small, powerless. But Dad left this for me, didn't he? Not just you, me too. I nodded, my voice low. He believed in you. Her eyes lit with defiance. Then I'll believe in me. For the first time since Richard's death, I saw not a grieving girl, but a woman stepping into her own fire. She lifted her phone, recording herself. "If you were in my place," she asked the unseen audience, "would you stay quiet for peace or fight with everything your family left you?" Her tone left no doubt. She already knew the answer. Morning sunlight broke through storm clouds, blinding and cruel. A knock shattered the fragile calm. A courier stood at the door with a crisp envelope, a summons, a family meeting, the corporate office, final signatures. Emily slid Richard's sealed envelope into her purse. I carried the binder under my arm, the weight of justice and danger both. As we walked to the car, she whispered, "Mom, what if they destroy us before we can even open it?" I met her eyes, gripping her hand. Then we let the world watch them burn themselves. Still, as the engine rumbled and the road stretched before us, one question gnawed at me, louder than the tires on gravel. What exactly had Richard sealed inside that envelope? Truth strong enough to save us, or sharp enough to cut us too? The Mitchell building towered over the city like a glass and steel fortress. Its mirrored windows threw back the morning sun so fiercely I had to squint, as if even the building itself dared me to look inside. Emily and I pushed through the revolving doors. Every gaze we passed felt sharp, like blades brushing skin. Men in suits strode by briskly, their eyes flicking toward us, some curious, some wary. They knew, or maybe they only sensed, that something about to unfold here would leave a stain on this empire forever. They had summoned us for a final negotiation. But this wasn't negotiation. It was an ambush. The boardroom was cavernous, polished mahogany stretching across its center. At one end, Charlie sat with broad shoulders squared, smirk plastered on his face, as though the outcome was already carved in stone. Stephen sat beside him, legal pads stacked like weapons, his pen poised like a dagger. Mark, as always, slouched at the corner, silent, twitching fingers, his eyes betraying unease. "Linda! Emily!" Charlie boomed. "Glad you came. Let's end this charade." Stephen slid a contract across the glossy surface. We simplified the terms. Sign, and you'll receive a stipend. Emily's tuition covered. We walk away clean. Emily's lips pressed tight. I laid my hand over hers, steadying both of us. My voice cut the room. "We didn't come to sign." Charlie's laugh was gravel against steel. "Then you came to lose." I opened Richard's binder with deliberate care, the way a soldier might unholster a weapon. "You want to talk about losses? Let's start with the land, the West acreage. For years, you called it worthless scrub." Charlie's smirk faltered. Stephen shifted in his seat. "But Richard kept records," I continued. I spread geological surveys, maps streaked with Richard's red ink. "There's oil under that land, enough to dwarf every other acre, and you knew it." The air thickened. Emily's breath quickened beside me. A bead of sweat rolled down Stephen's temple, though he tried to mask it with a scoff. "Fabricated nonsense," he muttered, but his voice cracked on the second word. I clicked the laptop. The projector hummed alive, spilling Richard's face across the wall. His voice filled the chamber like a gavel striking wood. "This is Richard Parker. If you're hearing this, it means the brothers tried to steal from my wife and daughter. The West acreage holds value they've hidden. They pressured me to sign it away. I refused. I leave the truth with my family. Charlie slammed his fist on the table, rattling the water glasses until liquid spilled over the rims. "Turn that off." But Emily stood, voice clear as a bell. "No, the world deserves to hear him." Her hand shook only once before it steadied. Emily reached into her purse and held the sealed envelope high. Her voice trembled, but not with fear, with fire. "You lied. You manipulated. You treated my mother like she was nothing. But Dad left me this. Do you know why? Because he trusted me to finish what he started." The rip of the envelope cut the silence like a blade through fabric. Outspilled notarized documents, proof of Stephen's offshore accounts, falsified deeds bearing Charlie's own signature, receipts of threats mailed to Richard years earlier. Stephen lunged forward, snapping, "You don't even understand what you're reading." "Oh, I do," Emily shot back, laying each paper flat on the table like aces in a poker hand. Her eyes blazed. "And soon, so will the court." The weight of the truth settled like a storm cloud, pressing down on every corner of the room. Even the ticking clock on the wall seemed to hesitate. At last, Mark spoke. His voice was soft, but it cut sharper than steel. "They told me it was for the family, that Linda was in the way. But this," he touched a paper with trembling fingers, "this is theft. From Richard, from Emily, from all of us." Charlie spun on him, face red, spit flying. "Shut your mouth, Mark." But Mark straightened, his voice growing strong. "No, not anymore. Dad pitted us against each other, and I let it happen. But I won't stand with thieves." The room shifted. For the first time, Charlie looked small, cornered, his power evaporating with every word his brother spoke. His smirk was gone, replaced by a twitch at the corner of his jaw. I rose, binder in hand. My voice carried years of silence finally breaking. "This land, this legacy, it's ours, and you're trespassing." Charlie opened his mouth, but no sound came. Stephen scrambled, shoving papers into his briefcase, but every page screamed his guilt. Mark leaned back, exhaling as though finally free. And then the door opened. A man in a dark suit stepped in, the CEO of a rival oil company Richard had trusted in secret. His polished shoes echoed against the marble, a sound that cut through the tension like thunder. "Mrs. Parker," he said, voice calm but certain, "we've had Richard's files for months. The rights belong to you and your daughter. We're prepared to honor Richard's terms with a fair, legal offer." The blood drained from Charlie's face. Stephen cursed under his breath, his hands clawing at the papers as though he could stuff the truth back into a box. Emily's shoulders shook, not with terror, but with release. In that instant, the boardroom was no longer theirs. It was ours. I looked each brother in the eye, one by one. "For years, you tried to erase me. You mocked me as just a caregiver, a woman past her use. But here I stand, with the truth, with Richard's voice, with my daughter by my side. This ends today," Emily added, her voice fierce and certain. "Dad's legacy isn't greed, it's justice, and we're taking it back." Charlie collapsed into his chair, eyes glassy. Stephen snapped his briefcase shut like a coffin lid. Mark leaned back, finally unburdened. The gavel had fallen, though no judge sat in the room. The verdict was clear. We gathered our things. Emily squeezed my hand, whispering, "We won." I nodded, but my voice was measured. We started to win, but victory isn't the end. It's what we do with it. As we stepped out into the sunlight, the warmth of triumph washed across my face. For a heartbeat, I allowed myself to believe peace had finally come. But then I felt it, that stare burning into my back. I turned slightly, just enough to glimpse Charlie's eyes through the boardroom glass. It wasn't surrender, it was venom. And venom waits. The elevator doors slid shut behind us with a sigh, sealing the brothers upstairs with the ruins of their own making. Emily clutched the opened envelope to her chest like a shield, her fingers white from holding so tightly. For weeks she had carried tension like armor. Now her shoulders dropped, trembling with release. Outside, sunlight cut through the storm clouds, bathing the city in a gold so fierce it felt almost like a benediction. The light touched Emily's face, catching in her tear tracks, and for the first time since Richard's funeral, I drew in a breath that didn't ache. But if you think the story ended there, know this. Sometimes the aftermath reveals truths sharper than the battle itself. Sometimes the storm leaves behind wreckage you didn't even know existed. That evening we drove back to the farm, not as trespassers, not as widows, shadows, or orphans, but as rightful heirs. The gravel crunched under the tires, and for the first time the sound didn't chill me. The house no longer looked like a mausoleum of Richard's pain. The porch didn't sag in judgment. The windows, once dark and accusing, caught the last light of dusk and gleamed like open eyes welcoming us home. Emily entered first. She stopped before the easel where Richard's unfinished painting waited, brush strokes frozen mid-storm. A woman at a window, a black horse against thunder, his memory of me. Emily's hands trembled as she lifted a brush. "He started this for you," she whispered. "Let me finish it. With you." I picked up another brush. The bristles dragged across canvas, colors bleeding into colors. Together we filled the canvas, silver strands in the woman's hair, storm clouds parting, the horse rearing free. We weren't painting perfection. We were painting survival, grief transformed into something alive. For a moment the silence was holy. Only the faint creak of the old house and our breathing filled the air. But the world outside the farm didn't stay silent. News traveled faster than we could. Within weeks, headlines screamed, "Forged deeds unravel in Mitchell investigation. Offshore accounts seized. Brothers face scrutiny. Bribes linked to city contracts explode into scandal. Court clerks whispered Charlie and Stephen's names with contempt in courthouse halls. Journalists camped outside their once proud homes. The empire they'd built on intimidation was crumbling, one headline at a time. They had mocked me, called me useless, tried to erase me, and now their names were etched in disgrace. For once, justice did not crawl in whispers. It thundered. One night, Emily found me staring at the glow of the television, watching yet another news anchor dissect the downfall. "Do you think they'll ever change?" she asked softly. I shook my head. "Some people only bend when broken. That's their journey, not ours." She leaned against me, and for the first time, in months, we sat in quiet without fear, pressing down on our shoulders. Weeks later, I stood with Emily in the paddock. The air smelled of cut hay and new rain. The black mare, Midnight, trotted free, mane glinting under a sky washed clean. Richard had once dreamed of this land as sanctuary, not battleground. Now, at last, we honored that dream. Emily's laughter rang across the field as the horse circled and returned to her hand. "She trusts me," Emily said, beaming. "She knows you freed her," I answered. We decided then, part of the oil profits would be dedicated to a trust, for the land's preservation, and for scholarships to children who had lost parents in industrial accidents, like the men Richard once labored beside. Emily pressed her forehead against Midnight's neck. "Dad would have wanted this." "Yes," I said, my throat tight. "He wanted us to live, not just survive." And in that moment, I finally understood. Revenge had never been the true destination. What we had gained was reclamation of dignity, of voice, of the love Richard had left behind. For years, I carried words like scars. "You're useless now." Words meant to reduce me, to break me. If anyone has ever been told those words, hear me clearly. They are lies. Worth is not given by greedy hands nor revoked by them. Worth is lived, breathed, proven in love. Sometimes I wonder what Richard would say if he could see us now. Emily once asked if I regretted breaking his promise not to return to this farm. I told her he wanted to spare us pain, but by going back, we found not just corruption, but strength we never knew we carried. The truth is, sometimes the road to healing runs straight through the places we fear most. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, sunlight streamed through the farmhouse windows. Dust motes drifted like stars in a golden sky. Emily and I stood shoulder to shoulder, finishing the painting. We named it Legacy. Not a legacy of wealth, nor oil, nor land, but of love, refusing to vanish. I looked at it and thought of Richard's last words. Never go back to the farm. He wanted to protect me. Yet by going back, Emily and I uncovered the secret he couldn't carry alone and turned it into justice. Respect isn't given by blood. It is earned through love and kindness. And when love is betrayed, justice becomes the final heir. So that's our story of pain, betrayal, and finally justice. If you've endured something similar, know this: you are not alone. Here, every story is a reminder that silence doesn't have to be the end. Share a story you've lived through or witnessed, because you never know how many people here might relate to you. Every story is a reminder that no one has to suffer alone. Together, we can raise our voices for fairness and respect. If this story touched you, leave a comment below. Share your thoughts, your experiences, even a message to your younger self. And don't forget, subscribe to Twist Stories, turn on the notification bell, and join us for more tales of sacrifice, betrayal, and the unexpected twists that remind us of life's strange balance. Because in the end, what matters is not just justice in a courtroom, but the justice we claim in our hearts, in our homes, in the legacy we leave behind.